Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Aaron Eccles, Senior Director of Marketing at REW. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks, Emma.
All right, so let's start with some context. So, what does REW do, and what audience do you serve?
Sure. So rew.ca is Western Canada's largest real estate search portal. So we kind of exist to help home seekers, people who are looking for a home, find that home. So, we offer everything from resale, listings, rentals, and new homes all in one space. And our audience, yeah, as I mentioned, we tend to look for consumers across the country who are looking to purchase or rent a new home.
Awesome. And then I understand you also have sort of a B2B component. Can you talk
We
about that
do.
side as well?
Yeah. So while we kind of exist for the home seeker community, we couldn't do what we do without agent partners, so and industry partners. So while we kind of we have the listings on our platform for people to search for homes, we also kind of partner with the best real estate agents in the business. We have products and services, marketing products for them to use across our site that helps them amplify listings, to kind of amplify their own brand, to connect. There's lead generation sort of tools as well. And we also work with the developers on the new home side of things. So to kind of advertise pre-sale opportunities, new developments that are coming up, to help them kind of shift their inventory as well, and to promote their own sort of brands on top of that too.
Awesome. And so that isn't just a matter of having more sort of inventory for the consumer side. That's an actual revenue stream for you as well, those partnerships.
It is, yes. So those products that we offer to industry partners, that's how we drive most of our revenue.
Okay, excellent. And so, as the senior director of marketing, you're responsible for talking to both of those audiences, both the agent partners side and the consumers, home buyers, renters side. How do you prioritize between those two?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've always sort of had the mentality that we wouldn't exist without the home seeker audience. We have to create a product and an experience for them first and foremost that brings them back, that gets them here in the first place, gets them to look for listings. There's other search portals out there. So what makes us different? How do we try and target that community, make sure that they're getting the best experience they can? So if once we do that, we've got a great kind of base of home seekers on our platform. Traffic is high, we're getting people coming back and recommending us. Then we can, use that to say to our industry partners, hey, look, we've got the best audience in the business. This is why you should partner with us. This is what we bring to the table. That's kind of how we approach it. Sort of B2C first and then B2B follow as well off the back.
Nice. Okay, excellent. And I think that's really helpful also because then you have the best sort of product available for the B2B side that you're
Exactly.
offering.
Yeah.
Um, okay, fantastic. I want to talk about what's coming next for REW because you're at a very interesting sort of inflection point right now that I think will be really fun to talk about. But can you give a little background first before we get into that, especially for our US based audience? You guys are based in British Columbia, and that's really where your roots are. Where you've operated for a long time. Can you talk a little bit about the history of REW in British Columbia?
Yeah, for sure. We started off as a company called Real Estate Weekly, which was a newspaper insert back in like, I think like the 70s. So this was kind of in Vancouver, Canada. It was, across the region. People looking for homes obviously didn't have access to the internet at that point. So you basically pulled out an insert in a newspaper, looked at homes that were for sale and contacted real estate agents who were affiliated with those homes. And that's kind of how it worked. And then as we all moved online and the world became digital, we've kind of grown over the years, and we went online and we've become real estate work. So we are now, rew.ca, entirely online. We offer a very similar service, still the place to find a home. But we've evolved with the times. And now we're at a point where while we kind of grew up here in British Columbia, we have always we started kind of progressing eastward across the country. And we're now looking at how we expand to other provinces and how we grow our kind of market share there as well. We've been lucky enough to have a lot of brand awareness and kind of goodwill here in BC, especially in the kind of Vancouver region. But expanding that across the country is our long term goal.
Awesome. And so that's what I'm really excited to talk about because it sounds to me like REW has really had, this home in Vancouver and in BC. And so presumably the rest of Canada has not been continuing on with the paper inserts and all that. Like, there are now competitors in those spaces, and, so I'd love to talk about how are you thinking about branching out there? It's not just about, arriving, "Hey, we're REW," but also now dealing with competitors in those spaces, even trying to figure out what metrics are different. Like, how are we measuring success as we expand eastward versus what looks like success here? So I'd love to talk through some of that. So to start with, because I asked you like four different questions, how are you thinking about expanding into an area where there are already established competitors?
Yeah, so the Canadian real estate kind of landscape is a bit tricky. We have the Canadian Real Estate Association previously owned the major portal called Realtor.ca, and it was kind of part and parcel of their organization. Realtor.ca still exists. It's kind of the most used platform for people to find a home across the country. It's become kind of a separate company from Korea now, which is kind of complicated. So still seen as, are a bit of a competitor for us. But also there's a lot of great tech startups that have popped up across the country, different companies that are trying to tackle home search in different ways, using more data and those sort of things. So we definitely have a competitive landscape. But I think what we try to see is that we bring something unique to the table. We really try to show that we exist for the home seeker. We are here to create an ecosystem that is all about making home search as simple and as kind of easy and accessible as we possibly can. It's a huge decision. It's buying a home is probably the most difficult financial decision we're going to make in our lives. So we've tried to demystify that process a little bit. That's going to be through content. We have a very large kind of content engine. We've got an in-house studio team. We produce a lot of guide articles around how to buy a home, all the different things you might need to know. We do a lot of neighborhood content to try to kind of give people a sense of what it's like to live in certain places. And that model's really worked for us here. It's one thing we're going to focus on as we do roll into other provinces as well. And the other thing that kind of stands us apart is that we are pretty much the only platform that does offer that sort of mix of rentals, resale, and new homes. A lot of the times you have to go to separate places for all of those things. So we're trying to establish ourselves as, hey, you know what? You need a home? This is one stop. Come here. Come to us. We'll tell you what you need to know. We'll tell you about the neighborhoods, and we'll have all the listings in one place for you.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good point, is that someone may have a clear idea, I want this many bedrooms, this square footage and all that, or it might just be, I got a job in this area and I need a place to live. And so am I buying? Am I renting? What's going on? So, all right, let's talk about the metrics. So you guys have had this foothold in BC for 56 years. So I imagine, like, investing in marketing in Vancouver and in BC is, you're looking for different outcomes there than as you're expanding out. And so, um, what's what's on your mind? First of all, what are your measures of success in British Columbia? And then we'll talk about how is that translating into these other provinces, and what you're thinking about, to make sure you aren't just sort of like burning cash and like, boy, I hope this works. But like, what does success look like along the way? So what are you starting with in British Columbia?
Yeah, so I think what we always look at here is, we have different measures of success. One would be kind of brand awareness and brand recognition. We do brand surveys just under make sure people understand who we are, what we stand for. But ultimately, it comes down to, are we getting people onto the platform, and are they sticking around when they do come here? So from kind of engaged sessions on our site, people kind of spending time looking for properties. That's always been a good indicator for us that we're getting the right audience, we're getting people here. But then on the other side, it's also, we have an real estate agent membership program. So we will look at number of members on that side of things, how many leads we're generating for those members, how many products they're purchasing. So there's those sort of measures of success as well. But on the kind of marketing side, what I focus on is that sort of, really like upper funnel brand awareness, but then also how does that translate into the traffic on site that we need in order to bring in new partners across new regions.
Very cool. And at this point, are you really dialed in on, you know, here's how much we want to be paying for a lead or for a new sign up in those new provinces? Or are you at a phase of, we're gonna, like, here's what we're willing to bet right now. Here's, what feels like a safe bet to us. And we just need to kind of put feelers out and get a baseline because we know it's going to be different from what we've seen in our on our home court.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think because we know that we're very data driven. Our company president is he came from the tech world. He's very focused on data, so we do really kind of lean into data, and we're kind of going through the process now of understanding exactly what we're willing to invest in order to kind of get that return. But I think it's complicated as well because a lead in Vancouver is worth a completely different amount than a lead in Calgary could be. There's different property prices, there's different audiences. So yeah, it's trying to figure that out. So I think what we're trying to do to begin with is just understand, what is sort of what levers can we pull in order to increase that traffic in certain places. Part of that is, increasing the number of listings we have in those regions. So making sure that we have like a really widespread sort of amount of listings coming in on the platform, which is going to be, when once we start talking to people and telling people about us, we want to make sure they get to us and see, oh yeah, okay, there's all the places I want to look for are here, and there's an easy way for me to go and you know go and do a tour or to speak to an agent about this place. So yeah, starting with that sort of inventory levels, and then we can sort of make sure that we've got kind of SEO in the bag as well. We're making sure that we've got kind of the neighborhoods broken out. So when people are searching for a home, usually don't just say, homes for sale in a city. They probably want us to look at it. Maybe they already have a neighborhood in mind or a part of the city or a suburb or something like that. So we want to make sure that we've got kind of our SEO lined up and ready to go. And that we've got content starting to come in as well. So when people are searching, like things to know about buying a home in X place, we've got that content there for them too. And then we can start doing working more on the paid side. So we can start kind of doing some paid search. We can start doing, some digital advertising in those places, trying to kind of make sure our brand is out there. People tend to click on listings because we all love a little bit of, sorry for the rude phrase, but we call it kind of house porn. People love to look at houses. Like they love to look, everyone's like, what sounds,
Imagining.
but yeah, exactly. I could picture myself here. Oh, look, if only I could, afford this $5 million house sort of thing. We'd all love to do it. So that sort of content works well for us. We do a lot of things like, the top 5 most viewed homes in this city and that kind of thing, which really helps to get people clicking in, understanding how our product works and our site works, and just exploring. And, we've kind of done a lot of surveys that show once we get people on site, they're usually pretty happy and they do tend to recommend us to friends and family. So yeah, it's just getting them through the door to begin with is our big challenge.
Yeah, and I imagine that's going to be interesting to measure as well because the value of a new user, a new person on site is not just the value associated with that person, but if you're going into a brand new market, maybe there's some assumed, rate of referral and like, well, we need to get people in that area first in order to have anybody referring to anybody else and then the product will speak for itself. But, I'd imagine you're willing to once you have that math mapped out, I'm willing to pay more for a net new person there. Like I have to pay more because there's just a higher barrier to entry, but also that will continue to make the next acquisition that much cheaper because there's a little bit of goodwill in the area or we're getting our name out there in that area. So um
Yeah. And I think it's also we do tend to see we tend to go after people in the kind of first time buyer sphere. It tends to be you've yet to kind of find the platform that you love and you're stuck with. People who are probably retired now, if they're going to be in the market for another home, they kind of have the methods are they know how they're going to do it. So going after sort of that slightly younger demographic, first time buyers, giving them that information that we can give them in neighborhood info and video content and great social content. It's been effective for us in BC, and I think that's the goal. We can kind of really focus in on who we're targeting in
Right.
other provinces because I think that does help us stand out as well. It's like, hey, you know what? We're a bit different from the incumbents. We're kind of there's a lot of Western Canadian pride, so we're Western Canadian. We're not from the East, and
Yeah.
yeah, we can kind of build on that a little bit and try to kind of build up some goodwill amongst that first time buyer audience.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting thinking about the generational differences. I suspect Canada is in a similar boat to what's happening here in the U.S., which is, income inequality, housing prices rising a lot faster than income is rising, especially, and um, employment anxiety, especially among Gen Z and people just trying to get a foothold in their careers and all that. So buying a home, I imagine there's significantly more rumination than there used to be. A lot more of, okay, well, collecting data points over time, whether it's literally putting that in a spreadsheet or just, okay, maybe I'm a condo person. I need to do more research into condo. There's just like going from zero to super high stakes first home purchase. There's just a lot more, "Oh, well, do I care more about having a yard or do I care more about having, trees in front of being close to my neighbors? Do I want that or some distant?" And there's just a lot more of starting from 0 or the home you grew up in and, trying to think about, "Oh, I'm gonna have to take care of this now." Like, I imagine the content and being able to provide a good experience on the app is that much more important for first-time home buyers in the younger generation because they're probably, if I can speak from my experience years ago in buying our first home, there was a lot of, like, I don't know, maybe this or maybe it was less of, I need this many bedrooms and this many baths, and it was just like, I don't even know. So I just need to collect a lot of data points and get a picture in my head of what's possible and what do these different properties have in common that I got excited to see on the app and all that. And that takes a lot of research and time and so having a platform that makes that intuitive and pleasant and easy and having additional content to, like, provide more data points, I can imagine being really valuable to that audience.
Yeah, it is. I mean, affordability is the biggest issue for Canadians. One of the biggest issues anyway. Certainly, is something that we talk about a lot. And the average age of a first time buyer in Vancouver is late 30s. People cannot afford to buy a home until a lot later in life than the previous generations could. So that is something we do try to make sure that we don't kind of talk about housing like it's a given, that it's something that you're that everyone can jump right into. So there's a lot that we do around alternative housing, things like building multiplexes on what used to be a single family plot and how that can kind of increase affordability. Or you're at the condo market, co-ops, those sort of different sort of types of housing. And we try to make sure we tap into that as well and tell those stories because it's really important for us to make sure that we aren't assuming that everyone can just afford a home. I think that helps when we do reach a new audience is that, you know, we're obviously taking that into account. We're trying to make sure that we're giving them all that information that they would need as well to make a big decision because yeah, it's just houses are very, very expensive and it's not going the other way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's probably some incremental impact that you're having where there are people who just assume I'm not going to be able to afford something. And so having some of that content out there around here are some alternatives. And maybe this is something that is more affordable may also just like that might be a fun, whether it's ideation and imagination or, oh, I didn't even think about this as a possibility. Okay, maybe I could, make a good investment and be able to sort of work my way up through the housing market. But yeah, that's really cool that you're speaking to those concerns and um yeah, supporting also then those projects that are helping to improve housing affordability. So
Yeah, I guess one other tactic we have and tool that we try to offer is we have mortgage calculators on the site. So you're looking at properties, you've got a way to kind of check in to see, well, what's actually, can I afford this? What would the down payment be? What's the sort of mortgage rates I'm facing at the moment? And then we also would just, offer direct access to mortgage advisors and mortgage brokers. So, it's that whole kind of one-stop shop idea that if you're a first-time buyer, you don't know what you're doing. You might come to us for information. You're starting to look around. You're starting to test the waters. But then you've got tools like, mortgage calculator and access to people who can advise you. And yeah, we try to make it just as simple and as thoughtful as we can for somebody who's going through a very difficult decision.
yeah. Well, fantastic, Aaron. It's been lovely chatting with you. Let's wrap the show there. Listeners, if you're interested in learning more about Aaron and REW, information will be in the show notes. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take care.